Welcome to the Urban Complex, a system of interrelated, emotion-charged ideas, feelings, memories, and impulses. This name takes the definition and lays out what a listener should expect. A podcast where ideas, feelings, and memories collide, leading towards meaningful change. I'm co-host Chris Richardson. Please enjoy the journey with the Urban Complex. Smarter cities for a stronger tomorrow.
All opinions by Chris Richardson, Dominic Papa, and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Arizona State University or the Arizona Commerce Authority. Any endorsement of or messages from sponsors are solely supporting the production of this podcast. There is no relationship further than podcast purposes with any sponsor unless separately created with another entity.
All right, here we go. Chris, another episode of the Urban Complex. Are you ready?
I am ready. How are you?
I mean, we're officially in the 90s, I think, here in Phoenix this week. So, why not? And just have great stories to get people out of the heat and listening to the podcast.
Well, and we got another guest that knows heat and crazy weather, that's for sure. So
yeah. So who are we talking to today?
Well, we have two gentlemen from the City of Coral Gables. One I haven't met, so I'm excited. But we at least I know I met Raimundo, who runs IT for City of Coral Gables at CES of all places, and that's the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Obviously not this year because it was remote, but last year in 2020 in January, and I was just stunned. They actually held a booth talking about City of Coral Gables as a smart city. So of course I'm going to find my way there and meet the folks and learn what's going on. And it's just amazing that they were using that as an outlet of both promoting what's going on at City of Coral Gables, learning about their technology, building relationships. And it's amazing. They literally published on their website about 22 things that they did for the city in visibility of why they went and why they spent that taxpayer money. It was really cool. I don't know. Do you know either of the two that we're having on?
Yeah, only Raimundo. I like yourself. I met him as part of an IoT, I believe, trade show or an IoT consortium group at CES. Yeah, and I just have heard so many amazing things about the work these two are doing in Coral Gables. Coral Gables is, in the smart city space, really well known, and so I think this is going to be a great story. I know him, and he's got a lot of passion. So yeah. I'm sure we're going to hear, a great story about how they got to where they're at now in a city, almost leading the smart city space in the country out of Florida. So this is going to be great.
Cool. Let's get them on.
All right, let's do it.
All right, Raimundo and Julian, please let Dom and I give you a warm welcome to the podcast, The Urban Complex. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir, for the invitation.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, well, I think the best place to start for our audience is understanding about you two. I know you have a tremendous amount of background, both of you, and I'm intrigued. I used to live in the Florida Keys, so I'm excited to see what's going on in Coral Gables. But yeah, let's start with, before we get to Coral Gables, why don't you tell us a little bit about your backgrounds, and maybe we'll start, I don't know where you want to start with, Raimundo or Julian.
Well, let me start really quick. So I'm Raimundo Rodulfo. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer and Director of Information Technology with City of Coral Gables. My background is as an engineer in the private sector. I started in the early 90s, working with telecom industries, Fortune 500s in electronics like Siemens, NCR. I went to Bell South. Then I came to the US to work on projects. At that time, it was wireless communications, early analog in the mid-90s here in Chicago. Then went to Silicon Valley and worked on artificial intelligence for telecommunications. And then in the 90s, in the early 2000s, I came to Florida, and then I started working with telecommunication companies in this area. And then in 2004, I joined the City of Coral Gables in a very early IT department that was just formed. And I was part of the team that built a network and an infrastructure from the ground up in the city. A cyber infrastructure that has been growing and evolving over the years. And for the last, I would say, 7-8 years, we started working towards becoming a smart city with services, with infrastructure and best practices. And we have a lot of technology and infrastructure, and we have won awards on those areas that basically applies Industry 4.0 exponential technologies to quality of life basically that's what we have been trying to do, improving quality of life in all those different parameters. So we have a great team in the IT department, and we are very happy to collaborate with our colleagues in economic development and all the functions in the city.
Wow, sounds like you've come a long way and great experience before you joined Coral Gables. Thanks for that. Let's turn it over to you, Julian. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Good morning again, Chris and Dominic. It's a pleasure being with you, and thank you so much for the invitation. Again, my name is Julian Perez, and I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Coral Gables. My background is in urban planning as well as economics. I am a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, as well as a member of the Association of State Floodplain Managers. I'm a certified floodplain manager also. My professional background began in the mid-'80s as a member of the Environmental Advisory Team for Governor Graham. And at that time, I had the pleasure of working on the Save Our Keys program that later became that Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program, and a number of environmental projects as well as planning and program management. From there, I spent over 20 years in the private sectors. I worked for companies such as C.H. Hill, opened the Miami office, and did a lot of environmental projects as well as economic projects. I was an economist with C.H. Hill at the time. And then later on with SAIC, Science Application International Corporations, and a number of other major engineering firms. I also worked as a consultant attached to the Department of Defense on environmental projects. And then later I transitioned into local government, bringing all of that experience to local government. And I have served in the capacity of a planning and zoning director and community development director, and also economic development directors now for more than 10 years. And so my goal has always been to be able to provide a multidisciplinary approach to planning as well as economics. And now what we're trying to do here in our city is to integrate technology into economic development in cooperation with the IT department. We feel that it's extremely important that we do that. I feel that we're really now transitioning. We're seeing a major transition from the traditional economic development model into one that incorporates technology in order to make our small businesses specifically more efficient in terms of the communication with our suppliers and customers. And I think that it is extremely important here in Coral Gables that we complete this process in a way that is very efficient and cost effective. As a result of that, we have now developed two major reopening plans. The first one was introduced in May 6th of last year, and the second one has just been approved by the commission last week. And this one is a little bit more comprehensive, and it shows a lot of the things that we have done to transition technology into economic development.
Yeah, we'll have to bring some of that forward. Florida's definitely been approaching reopening very differently. We'll have to dig into that. But I also love both of you have such tremendously diverse backgrounds and have done so much. And just, I'm over here smirking. I used to live on Big Pine Key and taught at Sea Camp at Newfound Marine Institute. I had no idea that you were part of the Everglades project that we were teaching about how the Army Corps kind of helped, unfortunately, get water for most of the South Florida, but it had major ramifications on the Florida Bay and ultimately Lou Key, where we were teaching. So you were in the Save Everglades project. It's amazing. So thanks for sharing.
Not only that, but I was also drafting the Save Our Keys program.
Oh, cool. And
unfortunate, we never were able to implement that program, just like we did with the Everglades program, because the governor had just, he had just turned out at that point. And then
Well, it's still a beautiful asset. There's a lot. I haven't been back in a while, but let's come to Coral Gables and just let's assume that people don't know. People know Miami, but they don't know Coral Gables. Tell us a little bit about the city of Coral Gables. What your audience know, background there, and love to know maybe some proximity to Miami. You know, you have a very boisterous mayor of Miami. Mayor Suarez, and he's doing a lot of things with crypto. So kind of weave in that story so our guests have that background, please.
You want me to go ahead or you want Raimundo?
Let me just give some metrics, and then Julian, I'll pass it to you. Basically, our city was founded in 1924 by George Merrick. He was a visionary, and he wanted to create an international city. He also founded the University of Miami at the center of the city. So the city and the university have been together since the very beginning, and he also founded the Chamber of Commerce. So you can see the broad vision of Mr. Merrick, that he wanted to have an international city, a city that is modeled through the City Beautiful movement, the Garden City movement, and also the Mediterranean Revival architectural movement. And he brought experts from Europe, and he worked with architects and urban planners and designers to make this a design community. From the very beginning, it was designed, this community. It's strategically located at the center of Miami-Dade County, 51,000 residents, but also we have millions of vehicles that passing by, and we have hundreds of thousands of visitors that are coming to study, to work, or to have a good time in our city. A lot of attractions, multinationals. So Julian will tell you about all the number of multinationals and the consulates. Basically, we continue carrying forward that vision of Mr. Merrick 100 years ago. And I always say that we started as a City Beautiful movement, a Garden City movement, Mediterranean Revival City, and now we joined that movement of smart cities as well.
I think that's an excellent description by Raimundo. If you look at our city is a planned community, and from a planning perspective, is you know, I'm really in a historical place. Because if you look at the City Beautiful movement, you know, going back to the late 1800s and early 1900s, and it was a very important movement in the United States, because what we were trying to do back then was to bring order to our cities in terms of making sure that our cities were clean, that our cities were an attractive place to live and work and meet a lot of the social challenges that we were faced as a result of the Industrial Revolution. So, you know, working in a city where, you know, it was the foundation was based on the City Beautiful movement, and the way that it was planned offers a tremendous amount of opportunities, because not only do we have a very successful business section of our city, but we also have a very attractive and very well planned residential community. So when I see our city, I see a city like on the residential, we see the cultural values, the past, the planned community, and then we move on to the commercial side. We see a very dynamic area that is constantly changing. Again, with a lot of respect to our culture and a lot of respect to the history that made the city of Coral Gables the city that it is today. And then obviously now you see how we're heading into the future, the third phase of our city. And we're going to be talking about an innovative district and so forth, and how that city is welcoming, you know, new ideas, you know, innovation, you know, allowing the technology to be, you know, to help us develop into we want to be in the future, but without forgetting, you know, the basic foundation, the history that the city is so well known for. The most important thing too is, from an economic development perspective, is that this city is the excellent model of the triple helexic model that was introduced in the 1990s. And that was a model that the federal government kind of promoted, not only in the United States, but also outside of the United States, where you had government, universities, and business working together. Because we wanted to make sure that the knowledge base from the university, and in the University of Miami, Florida International University, okay, was being used appropriately and integrated into our economic development program. As a result of that, we have over 120 multinational corporations that either headquarters in the city of Coral Gables or have one of their branches as headquartered here in Coral Gables. During the pandemic last year, we were very fortunate and very lucky to welcome Friesland USA. That's one of the world's biggest dairy producer.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have their Latin American headquarters just across the street from my office. AIC Worldwide Services also is relocating to the city of Coral Gables, and it's bringing over 180 something jobs. And then we're seeing a number of other businesses also looking at Coral Gables and relocating in the area. In addition to that, we have 20 something consulate and foreign government agencies that are also located here in the city of Coral Gables. We have been also very, very fortunate and blessed that, throughout the pandemic, we lost a number of businesses, but we have also gained too a lot of businesses in the process. For example, in the retail and hospitality, we have probably by the end of the summer, we will probably have over 43 new businesses locating in the city of Coral Gables. And that is only retail, hospitality, and so forth. Our vacancy rate in the Miracle Mile area, and by the folks that are not familiar with the city of Coral Gables, Miracle Mile is a stretch of a commercial area that is, I think, over a mile long. That was an early downtown area that was established in the 1920s, right, Raimundo?
Yes.
And then after World War II, really took off. And that area there, that's the area that is kind of the hardest hit because it's the area really in transition. And there, our vacancy rate right now is almost 13%, but there's a lot of new leases coming on board. But the entire CBD, Central Business District, is only 3.9 something vacancy rate.
Yeah, it's such an amazing story there. You gave us great context about Coral Gables and where it's going. And I think with your opening plan, it's gonna see interesting impacts. Let's just hope that the pandemic, the virus doesn't have another spread. But I think you can see why you're doing what you're doing. Maybe we'll turn it over. I know Dom's really excited to kind of get into the Smart City meet, and let's kind of segue in there. Dom, why don't you?
Yeah, no, I think the background has been awesome, and I think that our audience and our listeners are going to love kind of where you've come from. So the point of this podcast is to try to help other communities and other leaders in other communities drive their own smart city initiatives and help impact their community. So talk to us a little bit about the Smart City Hub that you all have got started. How did it come to fruition? What was the idea behind it? And please, help our listeners understand, how you were able to do something that I've been watching for a long time. And I've been, always excited about what you're leading here. And so we'd love to learn more about the Smart City Hub.
Thank you, Dominic. So I would say the Smart City Hub as a concept started basically as part of 8 strategic management frameworks in engineering. So basically bringing a little of my background on multiple areas in industrial engineering and electrical engineering, and also on the quality management side. But we are trying to create here is a holistic view of a model that works on multiple fronts. First, we start with a vision that I called, it's a vision that today some people refer to as City 4.0, but in our case, it's always focused on quality of life. So that was the main vision from the very beginning, is applying the state of the art, applying the latest technologies and tools that are out there of the fourth industrial revolution or what's coming next to that, always to improve quality of life, leveraging strategic planning first, innovation, and continuous improvement, because basically it's a journey that never ends. It's a continuous improvement cycle. And if you see our strategic management framework model, we have 8 interconnected frameworks, and it's a cycle of that start with vision, then planning, then execution, and then strategic realignment, because you have to continuously reevaluate all your strategies and what you're doing and see the effectiveness and the impact, and getting all those KPIs and all those KPIs metrics constantly in a cycle that resembles in certain way the MIC cycle in Lean Six Sigma. So it's basically design, measure, improve, analyze, control. So we start with a vision, and that vision basically is looking at leveraging those technologies to improve quality of life in multiple areas, in mobility, environment, in public safety is very important. So it's one of the main priorities. Then you establish the focus areas. In our case, it started with continuous improvement of customer service, but then it goes to public safety as one of the focus areas. Then becoming a data-driven organization, that's very important. Then digital transformation that enables that to happen. And sustainability, very important. Sustainability in multiple areas. The environmental sustainability side as a steward of the environment, but also economic sustainability, our viability as an organization to continue maintaining business and making our businesses sustainable too, and our communities sustainable. Then we needed to have quick wins. So basically we need to have a short-term plan of delivering results quickly, because the taxpayers, the citizens, they are not going to buy into that concept, whatever you call it smart cities or digital transformation, if they don't see results. And as an engineer from the private sector, if you don't deliver results quickly, really, you are not able to sustain your business. So bringing that entrepreneurial mindset, that business mindset to the public sector, you have to deliver results quick. You have to have quick wins. In our case, we had multiple of them along the way. So we didn't engage too much in analysis paralysis and spending a long time developing plans, but we started executing results in networks and communication, digital services, improving quality of life quickly in all those areas. For example, helping the police department to leverage data and analytics to reduce crime and to prevent crime, and delivering results in crime reduction. By police department, they lowered crime 40% in just 2 years, leveraging a lot of data and analytics. Metrics of improvement in the sustainability master plan, like lowering carbon emissions and rolling out a lot of paperless solutions, and having an impact in energy consumption, in water consumption. So we work together with all those departments, with Public Works, delivering quick results too that are measurable, that are
Hey, Raimundo, the police reduction is amazing. Is there anything that you and your team help them identify to surface on the data side that you can help our listeners understand as some specifics in that? It's amazing results.
So data is a big component of those strategies. So we work together with police to develop at the very beginning a crime intelligence center. That became later part of a bigger vision, which is the community intelligence center. Wow. That leverage analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence for predictive analytics, but also has computer vision applied to CCTV or a license plate reader network and video analytics to provide quick analysis. But most important, strategies. So the officers, the public safety managers, they can have strategies based on data. And of course, we have a lot of data tools and analytics for that. And to do that, we had to build that engineering framework that I was talking about. So having the foundation of high-speed communications that took longer to build, and that was, to me, the most important component. And for that, I bring my experience from the telecommunications industry to what we did here. It was building a resilient, robust, high-speed network that has multiple layers that can survive hurricanes and power outages. Because, for example, during Hurricane Irma, the city lost 80% of power everywhere. And we were able to keep our critical communications for first responders, for 911. So the basic communications, they never went down, because we have more than 5 layers of resiliency, from fiber optic corridors, then metropolitan Ethernet networks, then we have wireless point-to-point networks, then we have cellular networks, and then we have satellite. So those 5 layers at any given time during a hurricane, they were utilized. And we helped, for example, the Florida Keys. We sent mutual aid also equipped with satellite communications when they lost even cellular at there. So we have those capabilities to maintain that resilience. But then we have to build that layer of cyber-physical systems, of sensors, actuators, smart lighting controllers in all those areas, traffic, police safety sensors. That's key for the police department to have real-time analytics. For example, if a stolen vehicle goes into Coral Gables, passes a geofence, that geofence immediately detects a license plate that is being reported that is part of a hot list. In real time, all the police officers in their cars, they get an alert. And they have the ability of reacting immediately and prevent other issues, and also react to any kind of crime or Amber Alert or any issue in real time, and lower crime that way, but also prevent crime, because the criminals, they don't want also, they see Coral Gables as a city that has a lot of detection capabilities. So that also helps prevent crime, which is the ultimate goal.
And they know not to mess with Coral Gables when there's a hurricane too. They know the system's not going to go down, right? That's incredible.
No, it's great. This has been an awesome story so far to listen to, and we understand, especially as smart cities, it's a lot about collaboration. It's a lot about partnerships, as you mentioned. So, are there any sort of what's your strategy behind partnering with the private sector in order to help you achieve some of these goals that you're describing? Tell our listeners about, how has the City of Coral Gables partnered with the private sector to achieve some of the, the vision behind the Smart City Hub?
Let me talk about the technology part, and I'm going to pass it to Julian because he also have a lot of great partnerships on the economic development side. Awesome. On the technology side, I can tell you that we, as part of that big framework, so we have the Smart City Hub as a service delivery, but then we have a framework of collaboration. And that framework collaborates in multiple areas, which is industry, academia, nonprofit organizations, the community themselves. So we crowdsource these plans, and we constantly listen to the voice of the customer. We use public sentiment analytics with artificial intelligence sometimes to also gather how the community is feeling about our policies and our services. So we use multiple avenues to continuously have that feedback from the community, which help us with the strategic realignment part that I was mentioning before. So those partnerships in the private sector with leaders in the industry. I am a co-chair of the NIST GCTC Data Supercluster, which is a big initiative by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And I have the opportunity there also to collaborate with Silicon Valley organizations and municipal cities, and also with the universities. And we also have the opportunity to work with the Florida ecosystem of industries. And now this vibrant movement of companies in technology coming to our region that we meet, and we have the opportunity to welcome and attract as well. So we are continuously working with all those partners to improve our services. But Julian, if you want to expand on that.
Sure, absolutely. So what we do from an economic perspective, we pick up where Raimundo has really worked on the technology side, and then we have local partnerships, we have regional partnerships, and then we have the same partners that Raimundo has in the technology with Silicon Valley, the university, and so forth. But we work very closely with the Beacon Council, with the Chamber, the Coral Gables Chamber of Commerce, the Business Improvement District, and our own regional economic development groups that we have in the area. Our goal is to make sure that when a company decides to come to our community, that we have the infrastructure ready for them to make their transition in a way that is efficient and cost effective. At this time, we just don't have the financial incentive, but we have many other incentives that are very valuable to that process. And so, we get the in-house team also in place, which is our public works, building services, building department, planning and zoning, And so, it becomes, I think a very comprehensive approach to be able to not only offer the technology side, but also offer, the economics as well as planning and building side of it. Our goal here, Dominic, is to make sure that those that are interested in coming to our community, that they can find a community that is open for business, but at the same time, it's going to make your transition as easy as possible. And then obviously, have all of these added value activities or intangibles that we have available, making available to them too.
Yeah, this is such a awesome and exciting story. That's a perfect kind of segue into really where I would love to dive next is, that idea about from a citizen's perspective, right? What you both are leading is absolutely amazing in the smart city space. But if I am a citizen living in Coral Gables, what is the smart city hub to me? What are some of the things I think, Raimundo, you already mentioned about, the public safety aspect of it, but what are maybe some other aspects of the smart city hub that me as a citizen or a business, a business owner in Coral Gables, what am I experiencing as a byproduct of this smart city hub?
So the smart city hub, I would say, is a digital supermarket. So it's the service delivery part of all the digital equity that we're building in our city, all that portfolio of services and data clouds and technology and all the stuff that is behind, that is pretty much not seen, but exists there and supports those services. So the Smart City Hub is the window to the citizen of all those different services. And it includes like transparency portal. You are a citizen in Coral Gables. You want to see how the government is spending your taxpayers' dollars in capital projects, in initiatives, in IT, in public works, public services. They go to the Smart City Hub, they get to the transparency portal, and they have full visibility over all those metrics. But also they can drill down, they can click on a dashboard, and they can go even further, and they can say exactly account by account. So that's the idea, is to have full transparency on all those multiple things that the citizens care about. The other area, for example, they want to see, okay, I'm expecting an inspector to my property or to my job. So they can see the status of the inspections online in real time. They want to see the data from the elections, the local elections. They have all the data from the elections there in those dashboards. They want to ask for the public records. They go online and they request any kind of public records. They can also go to a portal and they request police records that are not sensitive, because there are multiple categories, but there are a lot of police records that they can request. They can see all the agendas in the video for the city, the town halls and the meetings. They can click on an agenda item and they go to a particular section of the video showing what was discussed at the city commission live. They can do a lot of financial citizen services or e-government type of transactions. Either if you are a business or if you are a visitor or if you are a resident, you can do everything online. So basically, there's very little that requires you to go in person to do anything with the city through all those different enterprise systems. So there's a lot of things there. If you go to the Smart City Hub, it's very large as a platform. I call it a digital twin version of our engineering framework, because the engineering framework shows how everything works from those different layers of telecommunication and IoT and clouds and data. But the Smart City Hub is what the citizens touch. And I refer that as the service delivery for the ecosystem. So the ecosystem, the Smart City ecosystem, is people-centric, is people first. So our residents, our visitors, and everybody that comes to the city or that drives through the city, we also care about their safety. We care about everything that they do in our city. And so they are our customers too. Those millions of people that are all the commuters. So everything we do in the city has an impact in our entire region, because we are in the center of Miami-Dade County. Everything we do improves quality of life regionally in our entire region. And
what do the citizens look at most, like, of these data? Because I was looking on your sites, you publish a ton, and I was overwhelmed. Like, what is it that's most popular that keeps them coming back regularly? It's really interesting to think about.
I would say the day-to-day things that you have to do with government. That will be number one. I would say those e-government services, like to pay your business tax license, or to look at the status of your permits, or or if you are a resident, anything that you have to do business with the government. You go online and you do it. So that's one of the main things. All the app store is very popular. So we have an app store in the Smart City Hub, and there's a city mobile app, but there's an aggregation of many apps to catch the trolley, public transportation, to catch the freebie electric vehicles, public transportation, to find parking, to pay for stuff. So all those mobile apps are very popular because, of course, people, most of the transactions are happening from your mobile devices. And also something that people look at, for example, the local businesses, they look at the IoT dashboards live, because they care about real-time traffic data coming from traffic sensors in downtown, how many vehicles, how many people in different areas of the city. Those metrics are important for the businesses because they can use that to drive sales strategies, to drive marketing. And also the community initiatives, they are popular. So we have a section of the Smart City Hub where you can interact and provide feedback and engage. You can engage as a citizen with the city to solve problems. So we have multiple citizen initiatives there. And the citizens, they join and they provide information, or they complain about something that they don't like. So they provide any sort of feedback, and they are heard. And they can submit a request right away. They can take a photo of a pothole, or of a graffiti, of a traffic intersection that they consider is not safe, and they send that in real time. So all those things that are real time are the ones that are most used by the citizens. But the hub is also used by academia, by researchers that we collaborate with. We have open APIs and open data portals and GIS portals that anybody, if you are in a startup, they connect to that data and they use it for their business, because we share the data with everybody. It's free data, it's open, and businesses can also use it to drive economic growth.
So how this is normally Dom that kind of gets into these organizational questions of the cities, but I'm curious. I mean, you're coming at this from the IT side, and sometimes business leaders, city leaders, they might tune out to the tech. How do you keep it relevant to your peers across the city of Coral Gables so that they feel like it's their strategy and they're contributing to part of this? I'm sure, like with police department, I'm sure they understand there, but like maybe a different group. I mean, you have economic development here with you. Like, help our listeners just kind of put their frame to keep IT relevant so they can do these amazing things that you're doing.
Because basically, it's not IT. It's driving the business. It's driving the mission of the organization. Mm-hmm. So every project that we do is a strategic project. It's a strategic project that is aligned with the city's overall strategies and goals. So the master strategic plan of the city, every technology project or economic project or public works project is aligned with those missions. So for example, the Smart City Hub is basically aligned with excellent customer service. That's what we want to achieve. And the technology infrastructure is aligned with business continuity and high availability of services for the citizens. So everything is aligned with a quality of life metrics for the citizens, but also with a management strategic goal. So it's not an IT project. It's not a public works project. It's a city project. Basically, that's part of the horizontal integration model. That's why in the strategic management frameworks, one of the frameworks is very important. It's framework number 5. And it's the interoperability systems engineering framework. Is that we horizontally integrate all the functions in the organization in technology, both as an organization for interoperability between departments, but also on the technology aspect. So for example, the enterprise systems for public safety, they are interoperable with enterprise systems also for permits and inspections, or for land management, or for public works. Why? Because all of them have to share data between each other. All of them have to work together. From an organizational standpoint, this is why I wear multiple hats. So, as an engineer, I wear those.
Don't we all in IT, right?
Yes. So, and I came from engineering, not too much into what is referred to as IT, as computer science, right. But I came more from the industry on multiple areas. So, as an industrial engineer too. So I am a Lean Six Sigma black belt. So everything that I do, I put that hat of quality. I am a PMP, I'm a project manager, so everything I do, I put it also in terms of best practices as a project. But also in general, I am a business administrator, so I have to care about the entire business. It's not technology. For me, technology is one of the aspects, but we work together with all the departments, with economic development, with public works, with police, fire, with the city manager, because every project is a strategic project, regardless of how you see it as an IT or a police project.
That's great.
Give
I
you an
can't
example.
wait to start leading with Lean Six Sigma. I was at Honeywell for many years. I'm sorry, Julian, I was cutting you off. I'd love to hear what you say, and then maybe you can bring it back to what you started with earlier about your strategic reopening. You alluded that you're bringing that with IT. So I'd love to kind of hear how that mix is coming, but I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. Before I do that, I want to expand on what Raimundo was saying about a program that is not only IT, it's an integrated approach, okay, to having a smart city. And let's take, for example, the new flood risk maps are out in our community. And so we're working now very closely with IT to develop, a whole series of maps to be able to show the community where the changes are taking place. Today, you may have an area that is an X zone, but with the new FEMA maps, now they become part of the special flood hazardous area. That's going to have an impact on your flood premium. On the other hand, okay, as part of the smart city, we have been working under the CRS program, the community rating system, to improve our class category so that those individuals that live in a special flood hazardous area can now have a discount in their premiums. Their discount is now 25%, okay? And now we're working towards getting another 5% discount, okay? 30%, knowing that these maps were going to change, okay? And some of these premiums were going to go up. But using IT, using the GIS, and using all the technology that we have, now we can make all of this information, with the help of FEMA, more readily available and more precise to our residents. So that is one example of many examples that I can give you, expanding on what Raimundo was saying. So the bottom line here is to be very proactive, right? Also be very efficient and very cost effective in the way that we plan and manage our city. Now, coming to your question regarding the reopening of our economy. The reopening of our economy was done in a very strategic and methodical way. And why? Because we recognized from the beginning that we were not dealing with a disaster, we were dealing with a crisis. And when you deal with a crisis, there's a lot of uncertainties. And when you have a lot of uncertainties, okay, you always have to be prepared to make sure that you're very, very flexible with the new policies that you're creating, because you're creating new policies as you go along, okay? And in that process, it is extremely important that you're able to integrate all of the resources that you have in your city into the decision-making process, including the introduction of technology. And how do we find out that technology was so important is because in a crisis, the first thing that you want to do is from an economic perspective, you want to assess the conditions of your economy, okay? And specifically the conditions of your small businesses. That's the first thing. And the first thing that we found out very, very early on in the crisis, and that was going back to late February, early March, was that our business community, especially our small business community, was lacking the technology or the technology know-how, okay, to be able to survive in a crisis. And probably at the end of the crisis, become more resilient because, as you know now, that this is not going to be the end. Although at least from a Floridian perspective, okay, we're beginning to see a little light at the end of the tunnel. And you have to be prepared, okay, at this point, and that's why we have two plans now instead of one, okay, to be able to put a program, all right, that incorporates everything that's going to make these businesses more resilient. So that was the first thing that we did, okay? Recognize that not only we had a crisis, but we also had an issue in our business community, all right? Once we did that, okay, we needed to identify a series of goals, all right, that now integrated not only economics and planning, but also integrated the technology side of it, all right? And within those goals, all right, we also developed two major tiers of how we were going to go about doing that. Now that we recognize at that point that it was a crisis and there was a lot of uncertainty and it was health related, all right? So now we had to take all of this technology, okay, all right, and make sure that it was applied to this process. And we were going to be making the best possible use of it as we went through the pandemic and out into the post-pandemic phase. All right. So as a result of that, there were like two tiers. The first tier deal with communication, cooperation, and coordination. All right. And in that tier, all right, we already identified that, you know, the recovery had to be inclusive. And that was very, very, very important. It had to be inclusive, okay, of every member of society, not only the business community. So that was part of that, the 3 C's that we called. A lot of information was put out there. And we felt that the more people were informed, the better we were going to be, okay? The better we were going to be able to identify one of the 5 variables that we evaluated. And that was the health policy, all right? And then later on, how we were going to explain the financial policy implemented by the federal government in their first 5 programs, including the CARES Act, and how the community could go about taking advantage of all of these assistance coming from the federal government, all right? And then third, and the most important one is our local economy. Our local government. Is our local government ready for this? Not only from a technology, planning, economic, but financially, fiscal. Were we in a position that we could be able to pay our first responders, that we were able to get the test kits that we got to help our seniors? And then after that, we look at regulations. How do we improve or relax our existing regulation in order to be able to promote the transition from the health crisis to the economic crisis, and eventually the reopening of our economy? All right. And then finally is containment. And that is found in the second edition of the other plan that I emailed to you yesterday. Yep. And you will see all of that. And then all of those pieces, they all come together, okay, with the help and integration of the technology. Because when you go to the second tier, and the second tier is the mitigation, recovery, and prevention, we identify how we were going to help our businesses. And we were very successful. We were able to secure over $800,000, okay, to help our business community. We used $800,000 of that grant to provide direct assistance to over 60 businesses. And then we used $50,000 to begin our technology integration. And under the technology integration, that's when the partnership came in with the university, the industries, and the city. And we developed 3 very important programs that one of them was headed by Google, the other one by the University of Miami, and the other program was headed by our partners in Silicon Valley, okay? And in there, we talked about cybersecurity. In the university, we spoke about how the businesses could use that technology that is out there to improve their business process and so forth. And then finally, with our Google partners, was how to make use of the Google platforms and all of the technology they have available for them to be able to market their goods and services, not only locally, but outside the area. And then finally, we were able to buy 19 licenses from a company by the name of Common Soul. And basically that was actually the last phase, because with this group, one of the beauty of having these licenses is that people could now be able to sell their products virtually. And so someone from the home now can see your business and says, oh my God, this is something that I want, and then buy from you. So now we have taken a small business that was locally, and we have now put that business, we opened that business to the world.
Yeah.
Now they're customers only locally.
Awesome.
You've covered so much ground. I know we promised you we'd kind of keep you to about an hour. We're coming up on that. You mentioned that you kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think I'm confident that your strategy is going to get you through the core infrastructure investments you made before, are going to get you through. So we'll have to have you guys back to kind of talk about how you did get through and what's coming. But we do like to ask a final question. And I'm curious where you all get your inspiration, if there's anything going on outside there. And in that inspiration, if someone else like you all could be a storyteller, like who is that we should have on the guest, as the Urban Complex, you think our listeners will appreciate. So I guess the final question is, like, who should we have on the show? What's that story that gives you all doing amazing things at Coral Gables that inspiration?
I want to take that one. I think that my inspiration is based on my experience and my desire to help, the residents that I represent. But most important is to help everybody through such a crisis like this. And Raimundo and I talk a lot about this and how our knowledge is out there, is free for everybody. I don't own anything, none of these models, none of this stuff, all of my work that I did here, 12, 13 hours every day. And that's what really inspires me. The other thing that really inspired me is the way that I saw my manager, my assistant manager, my emergency director, emergency management director, and the whole team react, and how all of them were so calm and collect, okay, in a crisis that no one knew which direction we were going. And then finally, there was a word that was said to us by our mayor. And I hope you can have him, okay? Mayor Valdez Folly, all right? And he said to us, and I'm paraphrasing, it is very difficult, but something good needs to come out of this.
Yeah.
And that was my marching orders.
Yeah.
As of today.
That's awesome.
And I can tell you that's my inspiration.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're really helping move those folks along with you. And again, when we publish this, please share those links that you shared with us, like get them out there. And there's so much there. Anything, Raimundo, that you look for inspiration, or recommend a guest that we should be thinking about to get on the show as we wrap up?
Sure. Where I get inspiration from my colleagues like Julian. When I listen to him talking about his strategies and his vision, I get a lot of inspiration from that. So it's a cross-pollination process with our colleagues. I always see us looking inward and outward in a 360 way. Basically, you look at your leaders and you look at other leaders in other environments, especially leadership under crisis, when the leadership is tested in the most hard times. But then you look at the 360, you look at your colleagues, and then you also look at your teams and the people that are doing every little job. So we have so many unsung heroes in any capacity in those stories. The maintenance workers that have to go out there, they don't have the luxury of working remotely. They have to go out there and get the job done every day. The healthcare workers, everybody on those fields that are having so crucial. And now we all are appreciating how important they are in everything that happens. So we have to look at inspiration in that 360 way, because every part is very important. When I am developing a new strategy for the organization on the technology side, on the STEM side, I usually do something that's called like a brainstorming session. When I get every member from my team, everybody in any capacity. It can be a help desk technician, it can be an admin assistant, it can be a clerical person. Everybody is part of the co-creative process. So we have to do the same with the community. It's a co-creation process. A smart city is co-created. It's co-created by the entire organization, but also by the entire community. So we can get inspiration in those leaders also at the community level. So on my case, so like I said, everybody that we collaborate with in university, I can give you a lot of great stories of those leaders that have inspired us, that collaborate with us from universities and also from the industry and from the community side.
Great. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry. I just had to jump in and just say, I mean, this has been such an inspiration, because I think what you two have described through this, this podcast today is how, IT and economic development come together. I think, Raimundo, you put it perfectly. It's not an IT project. It's not an economic development project. It's a city project, right? We're ultimately all working together for the city. And I think that's what is going to shine very bright and clear here, is that your approach to smart cities is not an IT approach. It's not an economic development approach. It's a city approach, right? What we're doing is to benefit the city, because ultimately we're all working for the city. And so I think this is going to be a great podcast for our guests, because you guys are doing awesome work. I'm just excited. Sorry.
Yeah. So thank you both. The Urban Complex is so appreciative. Today's guests, we had Raimundo Rodulfo, Director of IT and CIO, as well as Julian Perez, Economic Development Director, and both at the City of Coral Gables. You guys are doing great things. Thanks for joining us today. We can't wait to get this out to everyone here.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Don, that was the City of Coral Gables story. What'd you think?
Awesome. I mean, just so inspired about the ability for them as a community in Florida to really, help lead the smart city charge for the entire country. I mean, I've been watching them for quite some time here. And I think I mentioned it at the very end of our interview with them. What's been so inspiring is that their approach, Chris, I think you've mentioned this in podcasts of the past. It's not an IT approach anymore. It's a smart city approach, and they're approaching it as economic development, as an IT, as public safety. They're just approaching it as, we're trying to do something as a city to help our citizens or help our residents or help our businesses, right? And that's, I think, what's been so inspiring about them, especially because cities in the past have, oh, you're doing a smart city effort, that's great. It's an IT project, or it's you're hanging sensors to do something. No, we're actually doing something as a community to help solve a problem. I think, Raimundo and Julian are just two great leaders, showing how two different departments, two different organizations, or, service lines technically can come together to drive a smart city effort. So I thought it was just inspiring, and I look forward to watching them in the future. What do you think?
Yeah, we see that time and time again. The best things going on in our region, the best things going on with what I'm doing at Arizona State University, or when it's not being led by IT, where IT is right there. We know the strategy. Like you heard how they weave it into, all right, they want to serve the community. Great. That's where the Smart City Hub comes in. They want to be resilient, both for their businesses to be up, but also their network up. Great. They tie it in and make it seamless. And I'm glad I asked the question when he was, because IT can sometimes gloss over. They talk a little bit more about the technology. When I asked the question about, well, what are you doing at the police department? Oh my God, he literally, I didn't know, where they'd go with that 40% crime reduction in 2 years, but that's the intersection of what this is all about. You identify ways. The minute that stolen car comes into the geofence that they're looking at, and they can tie back to the readers at the license plate and CCR, closed circuit TV cameras, that's cool and tangible impact.
Totally. And I think what's exciting is, as a citizen, we don't even know that.
No, exactly.
We don't know that there's been 40% reduction in crime. All we just know is that we're living in a safer community because we feel safer. Does that make sense? The work that they're doing is amazing. And as a citizen, we might not appreciate it, but guess what? That 40% reduction makes you feel safer. As you're living your day-to-day life, you just feel safer. I just think that's That's such
but to that point in Coral Gables, they kind of are trying to help that. Like, remember when he was talking about the Smart City Hub, like it's a place you go to get information and you can drill down to see how money is being spent. You can actually see that. So I think they are trying to get that message out there. And you could tell Julian being very excited about how they're attracting residents. They're very empathetic of their business owners and trying to get them through. You know, business owners weren't ready for an online way of working in many cases, especially small businesses. So you're dead on. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think the listeners will hear it, but like they're both obviously from a private sector background, and you could tell what you know, when Raimundo like, I'm an engineer, and so I'm approaching it from this way. But it's like, but he's like, but now I'm working for the city, so it means I have to do all this other stuff. It was just really inspiring, I think, to hear like just that public sector or public servant heart in both of them just come through. Like,
well, totally. But and like, you know, I love it when technologists, they come at something from one angle. So like, for instance, right now in our world of smart cities, digital twin is a buzzword. It's one of those ones that's kind of in the hype cycle. People have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
And it was referenced early in the conversation. Raimundo talked about how they're looking at digital twin and this and that. And I bet you some of our listeners will unfortunately gloss over it because they don't really know what's a digital twin. They have no idea. But the funny thing is, Julian later, and I almost added it at the time, but I'm like, no, I want to let him talk. He was talking about the flood premium example. Exactly. They literally created a digital twin. They mapped city. They did an integrated planning exercise and city management exercise. They showed visually where things are happening, what historical data is happening. They literally created a digital twin. And what did they do it for? They created a plan. FEMA actually helped them get this out, where they could actually help their citizens get better rates, make better decisions where they live. That helps insurance policies. Like that, to me, is using a digital twin. Yeah. You know, just the normal people don't even know what it is. What do you think?
No, I love it. Yeah, you're exactly right. I think that's great. So before we probably check over our time, what about cracks in the pavement this week? What are you thinking? Anything?
Well, you know, one thing I was thinking as we were coming on here, we've talked a bunch about Mayor Hidalgo and Perez with 15-minute city. Another mayor doing amazing things, at least in terms of trying to attract attention to a movement, is Mayor Suarez of the city of Miami. And I kind of threw a teaser out there. I wasn't sure how the city of Coral Gables were going to look. Sometimes there's, you know, competition, but, you know, they are collaborative and you can tell they care. I mean, I used to live in that area, at least in the Keys. And so I would get up there. And so Miami is really right next to where they are. Yeah. And so they must be thinking about, what does that mean for us? And what does that mean when the mayor is out there talking about he wants to be the hub of the future wave of innovation, whether it's blockchain or cryptocurrency is how he's portrayed it. He also talks about heavily how, hey, if you're a VC, if you are an entrepreneurial founder that's made money, they do have some really interesting tax advantages, and they've had some success at luring folks from that point of view too. So they're trying to position themselves on the horizon as being this leader to innovate and attract the talent at the same time. What do you think about that for cracks in the pavement?
No, I mean, I think it's brilliant. You know, this whole smart city movement, you have a lot of people like us, Chris, that are doing the day-to-day, grinding away to try to, you know, like Raimundo, like Julian. But ultimately, we are going to need political leadership, right? And what you, I think, saw with the smart city movement is those mayors that were the first people to adopt it, or at least embrace it, say, yes, we want to do a smart city technology project. Companies, investment flock to their communities, right? I mean, it wasn't too long ago that, you know, our own governor, Governor Ducey, said, we want to be the autonomous, you know, vehicle hub of the world. And people were like, that's crazy. Cars driving themselves, you're way out ahead of yourself. But look what happened. Now people in Chandler, Arizona can pick up a self-driving car as a vehicle service, as a car ride hailing service. So it's, sometimes you need that political leadership that, yes, what does being a crypto leader mean? No one knows yet, but at least they're out there saying it. And that brings industry, that brings investment, that brings everything you need else behind it, right? Because sometimes you just need that political will to just be out there.
Yeah, I mean, the governor also created the fintech sandbox, and we had, you know, companies moving here for that. I know it helps GPAC and ACA attract tech companies for those purposes by having the sandboxes, by creating the ecosystems. It'll be interesting to see how that helps both with what we heard on the show, with the team City of Coral Gables focused on reopening. I know Florida has had their own unique approach to reopening. Arizona has been not that far behind as well. I know we just made some big movements in reopening. So it'll be interesting to see how that vision push of this next wave of using blockchain technologies. There's all sorts of things that are coming to the forefront. Non-fungible tokens for those that heard the NFTs. I mean, artwork is being sold for like, I think there was a $70 million Beeple artwork that's tied to this stuff. So who knows? Could be the next tulip fad, but it also could be the future of way artists get paid. And I think that's what the Mayor Suarez of Miami is trying to tap into.
Totally. I think we're going to see a new like kind of political arms race, or almost technology arms race as we're coming out of the recession and coming out of COVID. People are going to look. But
at the same time, we still have to work together. It's great that people they kind of have that co-opetition approach, and we love it. So
yeah, that's it's all about learning from each other, right? Telling the story so that way we can all grow together. So yeah, this was a good one. Loved it.
Cool. All right, well that's a wrap. Thanks all. Thanks for listening to The Urban Complex. Smarter cities for a stronger tomorrow. Please find us on where you listen, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. We do love your feedback. Let us know if you have ideas for guests or questions to air on Cracks in the Pavement via social media. The Urban Complex is found on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Or just shoot me an email, chris@theurbancomplex.com. Till next time.